What's going on, everybody? And I'm back again. And as promised, we're bringing you more long form content. And actually, we're going to be taking you inside of some of the different locations that we go to and some of the places that we're planning to take you to. And this young lady right here, she had the opportunity to actually join us or research or scout for us one of our upcoming two locations. And you all have been asking us to go to Uganda and Rwanda. And Samia Abdallah, she's here. She is a popular social media influencer, and she's a part of the Maximum Impact Travel family. And so she has some amazing content that we're going to be sharing with you. If you check out her channel, you'll be able to see some of the content from Uganda and Rwanda. But what's going on, Samia? How you doing? Where are you in the world these days?
I'm doing well. You've caught me at home, which is a rarity. As anyone who knows me, that's usually the first question they ask me is, well, where are you calling from? Where are you calling in? So I am in Chicago, which is where I've lived now almost 6 years. But I'm originally from California, and I'm often not in the States, which I'm very lucky to be able to do that. But I'm home for today.
All right, so you're in Chi-Town. All right, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, I was actually in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and Chicago's one of my favorite cities. And I know it gets a bad rap around the rest of the world, but I know it's a beautiful city, beautiful culture, and I enjoy it every time I go. So now, with that said, you talk about how you're not home often, and you're normally gone somewhere in the world traveling. I follow you on your Instagram channel, and I see you all over the world. You've been to a lot of places that I look forward to visiting, but in particular, you went on an amazing adventure to Uganda and Rwanda, and we've been getting so many requests, folks asking us, when are you all going to go start planning trips there? And so Samuel, you've been instrumental in putting together the information we need to be able to share. But now let's talk about Uganda and Rwanda. And what were some of your most memorable experiences in each of those countries? And you can pick whichever one you want to start with.
Yeah, I'll start with Uganda since it's the place that I went to first. And I know I'm going to start off by not answering the question. I have two memorable experiences from each of the places, so bear with me. But in Uganda, I would say my top two experiences, one is the Kampala Mosque. So a lot of times when I'm traveling, I tend to visit places of worship, whether they're churches or temples or mosques. And Uganda's religious background is varied. There's a diverse number of religions that are practiced there, but Islam being one of them. They have a beautiful mosque in the center of their city Kampala is a very hustle and bustle type of city. And when you're there, there's a lot of space, and it just is kind of a calm and quiet, sort of amongst all of that chaos. And so I really enjoyed that. They have the spiral staircase that you can go up, and it gives you the best view of Kampala. Gorgeous, gorgeous. I have a video, on my Instagram that shows the view, but just beautiful. And the people that work there are just so kind. You can go there as a woman, not have, your scarf. They'll complimentary, get you dressed as you need to be. And then there's a older gentleman that'll walk you up, and it's a lot of stairs. And he does this multiple times a day, which you'll find when you travel. There are people doing physically strenuous things all the time, at least physically strenuous to us. And it's, easy for them. But he was so nice and shared a lot of history with me, and just, was a nice person to get to know while I was there. I would put that also with my first bungee jumping experience. So a lot of times when I travel, because I travel so much, I try my best to seek out unique experiences that I can remember the country by. Obviously, the country itself is memorable, but when you travel a lot, you kind of have to start doing new things that you've never experienced. So I've never bungee jumped, never skydived. I do think bungee jumping would be easier. I don't know. It depends on the person. So I decided to do bungee jumping. There's a town about an hour away from the capital city called Jinja. They have this beautiful river. It actually feeds into the Nile River. And that's where you can do bungee jumping. And so you're not, it's a body of water. So in case anything happens, you end up in the water, but everything was fine. They're very professional. And it was a very liberating experience. I was very confident that I was going to do it. I signed up for it, but once you get, climb those stairs and you're up there, you're kind of like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, but you just go with it. And it was amazing. It was amazing. It was exhilarating. It was fun. And yeah, would I bungee jump again? I probably would. But if I didn't, I'd be okay as well. Let's put it that way. But it was very, very cool to, kind of tack that off my list of adventures, traveling. So then turning to Rwanda, two things stick out. One is something we'll talk about more later is gorilla trekking. Of course, like Rwanda is one of the places of 3 places in the whole world that you can do gorilla trekking. So that was like the #1 animal encounter experience I've ever had. It pushed me in so many different ways, physically, mentally, and the like. And we could talk about that more later. And the second experience was the Kigali Memorial or Genocide Memorial Museum. That was powerful. I will say, as someone who was a political science major in school, I try to be abreast of global politics. I was aware of the genocide, but it did occur around the time I was born in 94. So I was born in 93. And so I knew a little bit about it, but it wasn't talked about, too much. I don't think African politics in general is not talked about in university studied political science classes in the United States. And so I knew the basic information, but I didn't really know the full story or, how many global parties were involved in the whole situation. So that was very interesting to learn. When you go there, you're not actually allowed to take any pictures. So unfortunately, I don't have any videos or photos. I respected that rule, of course. So I don't have any footage, but going there and watching everything that they had visually, reading, I read every plaque in there. I really, really wanted to understand what had gone on, and it moved me to tears. Some of the stuff that I read, that I watched. I think it's important to learn about these things. I also commend, obviously, Rwanda for putting this on display. This is something that they could have easily not talked about. There are some states, countries that should remain nameless that try to push off their history and they don't actually acknowledge it. And so I obviously give a lot of credit to Rwanda for acknowledging it. It was such impactful years, a couple years, decade even, one would say. And I know some people who have left because of that haven't returned. And so, as someone that was not involved in it, I can go back and kind of see, but they did a wonderful job. And should be the #1 thing you do if you end up in Kigali, I would recommend. So those are my favorite things from both.
I mean, those have all sound like they're very impactful because, and it sounds like it was not just an exhilarating experience, but it was a profound experience to, from an informative standpoint, from an educational standpoint. But then, when you were trekking with the gorillas, that had its own energy that came along with it. Because again, when people hear about Africa, they don't understand, oftentimes they don't understand all of the diversity from a cultural perspective that you can glean from. It sounds like you were able to glean from a lot between Uganda and Rwanda. Now, let me ask you this about Rwanda.
Yeah.
Is it as clean as they say?
It is. That is something that I noticed as soon as I left the airport and we were driving on our way to wherever it is that we were going. The streets are spotless. And many people say that it is probably the cleanest country in the world. It's up there with Singapore. I would put it up there with Singapore, not having gone to Singapore, but I hear it's very clean over there as well. But I did, I was curious about that because it's hard to run a country and keep it clean of any size. And so I did a little bit of research because I was curious, and Rwanda has banned plastic bags, and that's been in effect for a while. So I think that helps. And then apparently they have a sort of community cleaning day every last Saturday of the month. And all men, like able-bodied men from 15 years old to 50 years old are required. This is not like a volunteer event. You are required to show up in your community and clean or contribute to, light infrastructure improvements, right? They're not asking anyone to do something that they're not able to, but it is a requirement. And so that is very interesting to see, because I do think cleanliness and just the state of our communities are very much impacted by the actions that individuals take, but then what do we do collectively? Because I do think that when you know that, you know, what you do impacts your whole community, I think you're a little bit more mindful. And I would say they have more of a collective mindset versus an individual mindset. And so it is very clean. It is very clean. The streets are pristine. There is a part of Kigali that actually cars are not allowed as well, where you could just walk. So I think that helps as well. So yes, all the rumors are true.
All right. Well, I'm going to go see for myself too. I am convinced after watching your footage and hearing about your excitement. I know Rwanda and Uganda both are two places that I need to visit. Now, what was the food like? Because I know some people are wondering, what was this food situation like?
Yeah, well, the food, they're both Rwanda and Uganda sort of situated in the eastern central area, I would say, of Africa, where you're going to get a lot of spices. I will say both countries really, the green banana is sort of like your staple. So whether that's prepared as a plantain or used, the leaves are used to sort of smoke meats and things like that. That's what you'll find. I will say they have, you know, restaurants and options to fit a wide variety of palates. So of course, when you travel, you can choose to kind of immerse yourself in the more local cuisine, or you can opt for something that you're more comfortable with. They have both options. But actually I did write down when I was there a couple of the dishes that I really enjoyed. And so I'm just going to pull them up to recall. So in Uganda, they have this stewed chicken dish that is really, really good. It's called luwambo. And then they also have this, like I was saying, the banana leaf wrapped in the meat. You can do any kind of meat, chicken, beef, goat. As an Eritrean, we love goat. So I had the goat version of it, and that one's called matoke. And then in Rwanda, they have very similar. There's a chicken thigh dish that they fry up with spinach and banana or green plantain. And that was really good. And then they actually have these fries that are similar to our fries, but what they do is they actually boil them in water first with spices so that it really permeates the fry, and then they'll fry it versus what we do, which is we just go directly to frying it and then seasoning after. So it was really good. Everything I had was delicious. Everything I had was clean, you know, didn't get sick or anything like that. But I also, you know, at times had Western food, you know, just by virtue of room service or something that was convenient, more convenient. So it was
I
good.
was going to ask you about that though, because well, first question is, now was it a potato that they fried, or was it a yam?
Potato. It was a potato.
Okay, it was a potato. Okay,
Yeah,
because you
just
know,
like our fries. It just was a different sort of seasoning process.
got you. Okay, because
Yeah,
in West Africa, you see more of a yam than you do
right.
a potato.
Yeah.
So that was
Rwanda has a lot of potatoes. So
so that
yeah,
okay,
yeah, they
interesting.
have a lot of potatoes in Rwanda.
And they also have Western food. So, because folks wonder when they're traveling, what am I going to eat? Am I going to have to eat only local food, or?
No, my first night in Rwanda, one of my recommendations for a restaurant, I ended up having a pasta dish. Don't
Oh,
ask me why I ordered pasta in Rwanda, but hey, that's what I was feeling at the time. They had it. It was wonderful. So, and that's been my experience throughout Africa, honestly. You can find what you're looking for, you know, just like you can find what you're looking for here. So
yeah.
yeah, you'll be fine.
What was the visa process like for both Uganda and Rwanda, or was there a visa process?
Yeah, so there was. Actually, Rwanda and Uganda both belong to the East African Visa Program. So along with Kenya, if you are interested in sort of visiting all three, you can apply for one visa through the country that you're first entering. And once you obtain that visa, you're good for the other two countries. Did I do an East African visa? I think I did, because I was, you know, if you're visiting more than two or more, it kind of makes sense, so that you're not applying individually. So I applied for that visa through Uganda because it was my first country that I was entering. And then once I had that in my passport, it was very easy for Rwanda. Actually, my experience with the Rwanda immigration was the quickest I've ever experienced in the 54 countries I've been to. It took 2 seconds. Like, I mean, it helped that I was towards the front of the plane and, you know, the queue and all that stuff, but they just looked at the visa, looked at my passport, and, you know, complimented me on the number of countries I'd been to and sent me on my way. So it's a very easy process. You apply online. You just upload documents as requested and pay the fee. and you're good to go. And the validity is 3 months. It is easier than some African visas, which will remain nameless for the purpose of conversation.
I throw them out there.
Yeah, you know, I had to go through that the whole process, right? Last year. Now they have it so that you get on arrival. So they're making some progress there. So
no, they reverted.
They reverted.
They go back and forth.
I didn't know. I saw that and I said, dang, I went the wrong year.
No, but we still take hundreds of people to Ghana. So we, and I could laugh at Ghana because everybody knows I have love for Ghana. That's the one thing I don't love, but people still go. So anyway.
Yeah.
So that process is
you did that visa, this would be a piece of cake. So
okay. All right. So the visa process for Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya, easy.
Yes.
Now we talked about another question I had about the hotels. You mentioned room service. Now these hotels, they're going to be sleeping outside with lizards and stuff on them and all that. Is that what's happening?
No, definitely not. I will say putting actually, now that I'm thinking about it, no. Even gorilla trekking, you were put up in very comfortable, luxurious accommodations. So I'm not even going to single them out. But I would say with Uganda, they got the boutique hotel game on point, right? You still have your hotel chains that we all know here, but some of their boutique hotels are beautiful and the service is amazing. I stayed at a couple in Kampala, which I loved. All the people there working were great. The food options were great. The room service, like I said, was great. And I have nothing but good things to say about the boutique hotels in Kampala. They're beautiful. In Rwanda, I opted for more of a chain type hotel. I think I stayed at the Radisson, if I'm not mistaken, in Kigali. And so that was a great option. They have a number of those types of hotels in the capital city that have robust services, huge dining rooms, kind of whenever you want to pop your head in, facilities, gyms, pools, all that thing. Same thing you're gonna see here, you're gonna see there, if not nicer. And then in the gorilla trekking area, that is about a 2.5 to 3 hour drive up from the capital city in Rwanda. And it's more luxury style accommodations. So it's going to be even nicer than the stuff you're going to find in the city. It's very tailored to people coming in to do gorilla trekking. Everything is sort of centered around that. So they'll often provide you transportation to the start of the trek. They will, have areas to clean off your shoes from the mud. They'll have, some places will have complimentary massages after the trek. That's something I experienced, which was amazing. So yeah, you're going to be well taken care of for sure.
Well, let's talk about that gorilla trekking because you mentioned, because folks are now thinking about, okay, do they want to join us on a Maximum Impact Travel Adventure to Uganda and Rwanda? So now let's go inside of this gorilla trekking experience, because if you go, you got to do that. It's like, if you don't do it, but tell me, is that something that somebody should do?
Yeah, I definitely think it's something that somebody should do. I don't think that people often think of gorillas when they think of animals in Africa. Like we think of safaris, lions, tigers, elephants, that kind of thing. But gorillas, I didn't even think, where can I see gorillas? And luckily and beautifully, the only places you could see gorillas in the wild, where you can actually walk up to where they are, obviously within a safe distance, is only in Africa, in 3 countries in Africa. So you can only do that in Uganda, Rwanda, and Democratic Republic of Congo. And so you got to take your pick on, where you want to do that. The experiences are quite similar, but it was something that I had never experienced before. And it wasn't an interaction, right? Because you're not interacting with the animals, you're keeping a safe distance, but seeing how they live in their natural environment. I've only had seen animals in zoos or even wildlife sanctuaries, but it's still, to an extent, humans are facilitating that, right? And so this was an experience where we were just there to see them and leave them. We had nothing to do with how they were living or anything like that. So that was as close to real life that you can get with animals. And so it is an experience that I will never forget. It is very vivid in my mind, even as we speak, months after I've gone on it. how I felt and the impact that it had. I will say, for those interested, you know, anyone can do this. There were people in my group that ranged from, well, I was the youngest in my group, but that were upwards of 60 years old, right? So people can do this, but I will say it is strenuous physically. I struggled as someone who considers themselves fairly healthy, but you know, it's kind of, you get what you put into it, you kind of get what out of it. So a little pain, no gain, as my mom would say, right? Like, you're gonna have to be walking for a long time. The beautiful thing is that they do this in small groups. There was only 3 other people in my group, and there are porters in every group that are helping you along the way. They will hold your things. I felt bad, so I didn't have them hold my backpack, because I was like, I don't want to be that person. But they can hold your things. They can hold your hand. They can push you up whenever you need a little lift. They are super, super, super helpful. And again, this is another example of, they do this every day, and I can't imagine doing it like more than once. So yeah, it's definitely doable, and it's a beautiful experience when you get to them. So basically the process is that you trek an X amount of hours. I think mine was about an hour and a half to where they are, because again, we're coming to where they live. We're not, you know, they're not positioned for us somewhere. Every day, a different porter will communicate over saying where they're located, so we know what direction to walk in. And I will say, in Rwanda, it's the most hilly gorillas, and so they are really in the bushes in the national park. And so yeah, once we get over there, everyone is allowed an hour to observe and take pictures and whatever the case is, and then you have to head back. So that's kind of their rule, because they don't want them to be exposed to humans for too long, which is understandable, right? They're very close to us genetically, so it would be easy for them to pick up things that we do, which we don't want. So yeah, that was an amazing, most family. So basically each group goes out to a gorilla family, and each gorilla family has at least 1 silverback. Mine had 2, which is exciting. So we were able to see that. And then there are women, children, you know, all of that. So it was a very fulsome experience. I felt tired. I felt excited. I felt in awe. I saw a pregnant gorilla who was my same age.
She's about 30 years old.
Like me.
Yeah, 30 years old. When you're 30 years old, it's like a woman who is 45.
Wow.
I cried, you know, I'm an emotional person, but yeah, it was a beautiful experience. And it was so cool just to see how similar they are to us. Just even, you know, and we see pictures, right? Like features and fingers and all that stuff, but just to see how they play and interact, it's just like us. And yeah, there are a lot of moments where when I travel, I realize that even culturally, we're similar, right? Different groups of people. But then to have an experience where you feel similar to another animal is like a whole nother thing. And so I definitely felt that with that experience. So it was very, very memorable.
Well, give me a few reasons why you think people should go. And you kind of you referenced it a little earlier, but let's just kind of hone in on that a little bit. Why you feel people should go on this particular trip, going to Uganda, Rwanda. And then we're going to talk about another place that you ventured to. But why do you think in particular they should go on this particular trip?
Yeah, I think that people should go on this trip because I'm a fan of lesser explored destinations. So often when you hear Africa or East Africa, a lot of people are going to Kenya, a lot of people are going to Tanzania. Those are great locations. But I just don't hear as much for Rwanda and Uganda. And to me, that's exciting, right? That means it's unexplored or not as explored. And the more explored a place is, possibly the less the authentic experience can be. And so I feel like in Rwanda and Uganda, I had a very authentic experience where it was as if, you know, this is just how it goes. And I was just there observing. So that's one of my main reasons is it's more unique in that sense. Less people have gone. The second reason is just the culture. Something I did not touch on is that I was very surprised to find out about the nightlife in Uganda. So if that is something that you're interested in, people don't think that, when you see a list of places to go out, Uganda is probably not on that list for you. So I actually went and had a grand time, and we're talking like there's something for everyone kind of thing, right? I saw people out ranging in ages. So it's not just for the young people, not just jumping up and down. That's not what I was doing, right? Just enjoying the atmosphere, enjoying music, enjoying, outdoor activities in the evening and stuff like that. So yeah, that was really great. So it kind of can offer a lot of different things, both countries. If you want cultural, educational experiences, they have it. If you want nature, animal encounters, they have that. If you want to be able to eat good and go out and have a good time, they have that. So really everything that you would want, what I would want from a trip, it was able to meet all those needs. So I highly encourage it.
All right. Well, you have me sold, and that's why we're adding this to the Maximum Impact Travel itinerary or destinations, I should say.
Yeah.
All of what you talked about, and I'm telling you, the footage that everyone has had a chance to see as you've been talking, it's just something that I believe as we explore the continent of Africa more and more, it just kind of brings to life these things that kind of breaks down the misconceptions, but then it also, like you said, you didn't even realize the gorillas had so many similarities to humans. And so now that one, changes a perspective, if you will, or adds to it, whatever the case might be. But then you talked about the history in Rwanda, and then you talked about the cleanliness of Rwanda. So it's a lot going on in that Central East African part of the world. And we want to invite everyone to join us on a Maximum Impact Travel experience to Uganda and Rwanda now. Adventures of Darren and Destiny. And Darren and Destiny are twin brother and sister, and you go on their adventures throughout the African diaspora, meaning so African diaspora destinations, primarily focused in Africa, but we go to South America, we're going to go to the Caribbean. Their first book is going to take you to Ghana, and then we're going to go on a safari, and from there we're going to go to Ethiopia, and then we go to Salvador, Brazil. And what the goal is to be able to inspire curiosity in the continent of Africa, in our children from a very young age, and to really tell a more accurate story. Most of our children are exposed to negative images, late night infomercials about how bad things are, everybody's sick, everybody's poor, everyone's uneducated, but that's simply not true. So what Darren and Destiny and their family do is they go to different African destinations. They are learning about these different places. You're beginning to see positive images, but still telling the truth. I mean, that's the important thing, to tell the truth about some of the things that have occurred. But it's all done on our children's level so they begin to understand it. And it begins to pique their curiosity. They begin to learn more. And hopefully one day they will want to explore and visit the continent of Africa and its many countries. There's just so much that Darren and Destiny are able to do, and as they're doing it, it's like they begin to open the minds of a new generation, and they don't get bombarded and indoctrinated with negativity. They're actually able to see positivity and inspiring images and messages about the African diaspora, as well as those who are still indigenous to the continent of Africa, and they begin to learn more and just see things differently. So I'm excited about introducing the adventures of Darren and Destiny.